Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, August 16th, 2020, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Donald Trump's approval rating. Now, his approval rating has gotten worse from the last time that I used the civics.com approval rating state-by-state numbers, and that's largely due to the fact that COVID-19 is still a very relevant issue. The economy is subtly increasing, but not enough to make a too drastic improvement for the country. A lot of people are still unemployed, and also, nothing Donald Trump is saying is helping his campaign. Following Senator Kamala Harris being added to the Joe Biden ticket, Donald Trump has pretty much been on a downhill spiral. The number of things that he's been saying and attacking the Harris and Biden campaign for, all of these things are ending up to be negatives on behalf of Donald Trump. So, looking at his approval rating, we don't expect much in terms of his approval. He's never really been approved of except for January 2017. That was the only point in time when Donald Trump had a positive approval rating. Pretty much no other president in modern political history can say the same. Even Barack Obama, which actually arguably was a very popular president by the end of his term, ended off with a 55% approval rating and a 43% disapproval rating. Those numbers still hold today. And looking at the way that they're talking about his job as president, that's very different than an approval rating prior to the 2016 election. In 2016, his approval rating held no weight. There was no responsibilities for President Trump. Obviously, at the time, was just businessman Donald Trump. Now, he has a number of responsibilities. We're amidst a global pandemic. The economy is in shambles. A number of things that he was harping on, the economy, immigration, Hillary Clinton. A lot of these on the fence Trump supporters have to ask themselves, is Hillary Clinton locked up? No. Is the economy prospering better than before? No. Has immigration been done? Fixed? There has been steps, but has a wall been built? No. Has Obamacare been repealed or replaced? No. There are a number of things that Trump promised, this promises made, promises kept, that isn't working out. And we're starting to see some Republican states, some very solid Trump states from 2016, turn away from him. And a number of states that are expected to go to Trump and probably still will vote for him by double digits, narrow up in terms of their margins right now. We're seeing this entire map, and the orange are states that he's negatively approved of in, overall net, and then the blue states are the positive approval. But the title of this video is about every single swing state because there is literally not a single remotely competitive race that Donald Trump is approved of in, except for some solid Republican states. And when I say remotely competitive, I mean anything less than 15%. We see maybe 4 states on this map where I expect the margin to be less than 15% where he's approved of in. And that's unfortunate for him because a number of these states that he carried in 2016, he is no longer approved of in. So let's talk about these states. Let's start from the West Coast moving over into the East Coast. So nobody really expected President Trump's approval rating to be high on the West Coast. That never really was something that anyone expected. But we see down here, Alaska, one of the states that's not part of the continental United States, where Donald Trump actually has a negative approval rating, net negative 8%. That is pretty significant given that this state voted for Donald Trump by 14% in 2016. That is a 22-point swing away from vote share versus approval rating. And it is pretty significant. Donald Trump should be approved of in a state that he carried by nearly 15% just 4 years ago, and he isn't. And this isn't the only state that voted for him by a solid margin that's moved over. Now, these Hillary Clinton states, Nevada, Colorado, and New Mexico, actually disapprove of him by significant margins. Nevada being negative 24%, Colorado being negative 23%. And keep in mind, you could very well disapprove of someone and vote for them. If approval ratings were holding 100% true, Hillary Clinton would be president today because Obama's approval rating was positive by double digits. So based off that data alone, you could have concluded that if Clinton was to continue the Obama legacy, that people would be voting for Clinton. But at the same time, candidates are very different in terms of their support based off who approves of them. Joe Biden has an overall net negative on civics, but around negative 2%, negative 4%. People are still probably going to vote for him. Same thing goes for Donald Trump. Despite him having a 37% approval rating in Colorado, he's definitely getting more than 37% of the vote in this state. And again, like I said, you can disapprove of someone and vote for them. But New Mexico actually surprises me. The fact that it's at negative 10%, despite Colorado and Nevada being 13 and 14% more in terms of their disapproving of President Trump, all 3 of these states I don't really expect Trump to do well in. And also New Mexico is a smaller state. The sampling size could have been skewed a little bit, but also net 10% is nowhere near good or even, feasible for Donald Trump to recover from that point in terms of approval rating. Arizona is also negative 10%. The fact that New Mexico and Arizona share the same type of approval rating gives us a general feel about this entire region of the United States. Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada were all states that were expected to be competitive, if not Democratic states. But Texas being added into the bunch with a 49% disapprove rating from Texas residents and a 47% approval rating means that this race is probably going to narrow up in Texas. Biden actually led at one point in time in Texas polling, which is pretty significant. No Democrat has led there since 1976 or won there since 76 and competitive since 96. So it's been decades since the Democrats have even contested this on a presidential level, and it's working in a year where Donald Trump is disapproved of. A number of things are working against him, and it looks like this entire region is moving leftward, especially in this election, and the approval ratings show us that. Looking at Montana, this is actually a new addition to the disapproved states for President Trump. He's at a negative 6%, and this state is not competitive. I mean, Trump won here by 19% in 2016. It should not be close. He should be approved of by double digits in this state, but he's at a negative 6% net approval rating. That's horrible. But it isn't a swing state. We're not going to focus too much on their 3 electoral votes. Let's talk about the South. We'll avoid the Rust Belt really quickly, but let's look at Florida. Florida, net negative 7%. Georgia, net negative 9%. North Carolina, negative 7% net approval rating. So all of these states, I mean, if we adjusted for that, Arizona would be considered likely, New Mexico as well, Colorado and Nevada safe. Texas would be considered a lean state. Florida would be likely. Georgia would be likely. North Carolina would be likely. Now you add in just a couple of big populated states, and then all of a sudden you see how easily Biden would reach 270 based off those states alone. I mean, it's not impossible to see how Biden could win the election, and we haven't even hit the Rust Belt. Even if Trump remains and wins every single remaining 217 electoral votes, he loses the election based off states that he's disapproved of in. And the catch is, he isn't approved of in any of these states over here. So we'll talk about that once we get over there. But North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida being negative 7, negative 9, negative 7, is not a good sign, especially in a year where we're seeing increased minority turnout. We're starting to see decreased white support for the Republican Party on both the House level, the Senate level, and of course the presidential level. All of these things are ending up to shape out to be a negative idea for President Trump. No president has been elected after 3 presidents before them have been consecutively reelected. So that would be a sort of history-breaking thing. It's a little known fact, but I will say that history tends to repeat itself. Donald Trump probably will come up short in November if the current, the race stays on this trajectory and keeps going downward for him. So if we look at these states, I mean, not only is he disapproved of here, but also in the Sun Belt and in the Rust Belt. So looking at Virginia, nobody really expected Trump to be competitive there. Minnesota, negative 19%. That's a state that went to Hillary Clinton by merely 1.5%. This is a 17-point swing in favor of the Democrats if you compare vote share versus approval. Up in the Northeast, Maine should be competitive. It isn't. New Hampshire should be competitive. It isn't. I mean, New Hampshire and New York are roughly similar in terms of how much they disapprove of President Trump. So that's enough to characterize these states as, safe for Vice President Joe Biden. Now, the Rust Belt is where I wanted to end off. Pennsylvania, negative 12%. Michigan, negative 14%. Wisconsin, negative 10%. These are all negative double-digit margins. And get this, Trump carried these states in 2016 by less than 1%. And at this point in time, sure, his favorability rating was not high. I'll give you that. I mean, he was not too likable of a candidate, and neither was Hillary Clinton. However, he actually has responsibilities. People forget that before you're president, you can say all of these things. We're going to build a wall. We're going to lock Hillary Clinton up. We're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. We're going to do all of these things. And when you come up short after serving for 4 years, the same people that narrowly elected you the first time are not going to be too inclined to narrowly reelect you again, because I do not see Donald Trump winning over any Clinton voters. Obviously, there are minor exceptions. Maybe 0.05% of those who voted for Clinton are probably going to move over to Trump, but that's marginal. Looking at the amount of Trump voters, or at least Republicans or former Obama to Trump voters, they're easily going back to Vice President Biden. I mean, Michigan, absolutely. Pennsylvania, absolutely. Wisconsin's the only one that's a little bit on edge, and he's disapproved of by 10%. So that puts Biden at 374. And I haven't even characterized Montana for Biden. And we still have to talk about Ohio and Iowa. He's at negative 7 in Iowa, and negative 3 in Ohio. Now, the reason why this is so significant is because Iowa voted for Trump by nearly 10% 4 years ago, despite going for Obama in 2008 and 2012. Obama carried those states both times. But also, Iowa, for whatever reason, drastically moved rightward. In 2018, it came back to a little bit of a Democratic ideology, I guess, with the House of Representatives results. The governor's race was narrowed up, but overall, the state is still probably going to go to Donald Trump. Yes, he's underwater by 7%, and that is not a good sign whatsoever. It shows a crack in the entire Trump base that really starts to give us an idea that a lot of these states that went to Trump by very solid margins will likely be narrower, if not Biden margins. But Iowa and Ohio, these are two states I still expect to go to Donald Trump, just that the fact that they're narrow is news in itself. And Ohio, the fact that it's the closest in terms of approval out of all of the swing states, I think this year will really be the year where Ohio ends its streak as voting correctly for the past 60 years with the presidential election winner. So Ohio, Iowa disapproved of. We add that into the margin. I mean, actually Texas is a little bit narrower than Ohio, but also, Ohio and Texas roughly were the same margin, so that makes sense. But looking at this map, I mean, if I throw in Montana, he's over 400. And, Montana would actually be a likely state based off that. And so would Alaska. Wow, that is literally insane. If we just took the numbers, you have to add in Maine 2nd District, I guess. If you just took the numbers from the approval ratings and applied them to a vote share margin, Donald Trump loses with getting only 120 electoral votes. That is insane. Donald Trump is disapproved of in states that comprise of 418 out of the 538 electoral votes nationwide. Keep that in mind as he proceeds through the general election. He's going to need to significantly approve of in certain states. The fact that he isn't leading in the Rust Belt shouldn't be too worrisome for him. He wasn't leading there on election day. The fact that he isn't leading in Florida, that's a little bit iffy. He should be leading in North Carolina and Georgia and Texas and Arizona and Alaska and Montana and Iowa and Ohio to even be competitive in this election. But guess what? He isn't. All of those red states are all states that disapprove of him. So Trump is in for a world of trouble as we get closer to November. As the days count down, 79 days to the election, Donald Trump's numbers are not getting better in terms of approval. I mean, it's pretty much hovered around here, if not better, before August 2020, and it's probably only going to get worse. Looking at the trend line, I mean, it's at 56%. Looking at all the things that have happened, his lowest point, he was at right around this point where it was 55% disapproval rating. Wow, he's actually at one of his lowest in terms of his, or highest in terms of disapproval rating and lowest in terms of approval rating nationwide. But this was his lowest. 2017, 38% approval rating nationwide. He's only up 3% from his lowest point in his entire presidency with a couple of months until the election. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord link for you to go ahead and join. We're trying to get to 500 members. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my 2020 election nights. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.